What happened when you refused to be your family's punching bag? The text came in at 2:47 a.m., jolting me awake. Your brother is missing again. This is your fault for not watching him better. Find him now or don't bother coming home. I stared at my phone screen in the darkness of my childhood bedroom, the same room I'd been forced back into 3 months ago when Latex Solutions decided my marketing position was redundant. Mom's words glowed accusingly in our family group chat, and I could already see the typing bubbles indicating more messages were coming. Sarah always was the selfish one. Never takes responsibility. We should have known she'd fail us again. The messages kept piling up from Mom, Dad, and even my Aunt Patricia, who lived 2 states away and barely knew any of us. All blaming me for the fact that my 19-year-old brother Jake had snuck out of the house again, probably to get wasted at some party. I screenshot each message methodically, a habit I developed over the past few weeks as the accusations became more frequent and more insane. My phone's screenshot folder was now organized by family member and numbered chronologically. This was Jake-related incident number 47. By 3:15 a.m., I was driving through our suburb in my beat-up Honda Civic, checking all of Jake's usual spots. The McDonald's parking lot where his friend Trevor worked nights. The 24-hour gas station on Maple Street. The park behind the elementary school where they used to smoke and drink cheap beer. I found him passed out on a bench at Riverside Park, reeking of alcohol and vomit, his wallet missing and his phone dead. It took 20 minutes to shake him awake enough to get him in my car. Sarah. He mumbled as I buckled his seatbelt. Why are you here? Because apparently I'm your keeper now, I said, pulling out of the empty parking lot. That's stupid. I'm fine. Tell that to Mom and Dad. The ride home was silent except for Jake's occasional groaning. I thought about how different things had been just 6 months ago, when I'd had my own apartment in Denver, my own life, my own problems that actually belonged to me. Back then, family drama happened at a safe distance, filtered through brief phone calls and holiday visits. Now I was apparently responsible for Jake's every mistake, Dad's inability to find work after his contracting business failed, and Mom's growing list of grievances about everything from the neighbor's loud dog to the state of American society in general. Somehow, according to the daily family meetings that felt more like interrogations, I was supposed to step up and fix what I'd broken, though no one could explain exactly what I'd broken or how a 24-year-old with a bachelor's degree in marketing was supposed to solve problems that had been festering for years before I'd even graduated high school. I pulled into our driveway at 4:23 a.m. The porch light was on, and I could see Mom's silhouette in the kitchen window. She'd be waiting with her arms crossed and her lecture prepared about responsibility and family loyalty and how disappointed she was in the daughter she'd raised. Jake stumbled toward the front door without a word of thanks. I sat in my car for a moment, watching him go, and opened my laptop bag to pull out the small notebook where I'd started tracking these incidents. November 15th, 4:25 a.m., I wrote. Found Jake at Riverside Park. Parents blamed me for not preventing his escape, despite him being a legal adult who left through his bedroom window while I was asleep. I had no idea then that this notebook would eventually become evidence in a case I was building against my own family. The family meeting was called for 10 a.m. sharp, which meant I'd gotten roughly 3 hours of sleep after the Jake incident. I dragged myself downstairs to find the whole tribunal assembled around our scratched dining room table, Mom with her coffee mug that read, World's Greatest Mom, a cruel irony, Dad hunched over his laptop pretending to job hunt, and Jake looking surprisingly alert for someone who'd been comatose in a park 4 hours earlier. Sit, Mom commanded, pointing to the chair across from her. The defendant's chair, as I come to think of it. Sarah, we need to talk about your attitude, Dad began, not even looking up from his screen. Your mother and I have been discussing your situation. My situation? I repeated, settling into the familiar role of confused punching bag. You've been home for 3 months, Mom said, her voice taking on that sharp edge I knew so well. 3 months of us supporting you, feeding you, housing you. And what do we have to show for it? I blinked. I've been job hunting every day. I've applied to over 200 positions. Excuses, Dad cut me off. Your brother told us about the conversation you had last night. My stomach dropped. I looked at Jake, who was suddenly very interested in his cereal. What conversation? About how you think we're all losers, Jake mumbled into his Lucky Charms. How you can't wait to get out of this trashy family and how we're all holding you back. The words hit me like ice water. I never said that. Jake, you were barely conscious. You asked me why I came to get you and I said. Don't lie to us, Sarah. Mom's voice was deadly quiet now. We know how you really feel. Looking down on your father for losing his business. Judging me for not having a college degree like you. Acting like you're too good for this family. That's not, I stammered, but Dad was already pulling up something on his laptop. We've made a decision, he announced, spinning the screen toward me. It was a job listing for Walmart, night shift, starting at $12.50 an hour. You're going to apply for this today. It's time you started contributing to this household instead of being a burden. I have money saved, I protested. I've been buying my own food, paying for my gas. $300 a month for rent, starting December 1st, Mom interrupted. Plus $150 for utilities and $200 for food. We're done enabling your freeloading. I stared at them. The numbers were deliberately impossible, higher than market rate for a room in our area, designed to trap me in retail hell indefinitely. That's $650 a month for a bedroom in a house you already own. I could get my own apartment for. Then do it, Dad snapped, finally looking at me. Oh wait, you can't. Because you got yourself fired. I was laid off. There's a difference. Is there? Mom's smile was cold. Because companies don't usually let go of their best employees. The implication hung in the air like smoke. Jake was watching this tennis match of humiliation with obvious enjoyment, probably grateful the spotlight wasn't on him for once. I need to think about this, I said carefully. Nothing to think about, Mom replied. You apply today, or you find somewhere else to live. We're done sacrificing our peace of mind for your problems. I climbed the stairs to my room on shaking legs, my notebook clutched in my hand. November 15th, 10:45 a.m., I wrote. Parents demanded I take minimum wage job and pay $650 per month rent for childhood bedroom. Jake lied about conversation to deflect from his own issues. Family presenting unified front against me. 3 hours later, I was secretly uploading my resume to a job board, but not for Walmart. It was time to get serious about my exit strategy. The breaking point came 2 weeks later, on Thanksgiving morning. I'd been quietly applying to jobs across the country, focusing on cities where my marketing degree might actually matter. Seattle, Austin, Chicago, anywhere that wasn't here. My phone was full of recruiter contacts and promising email threads, but I kept that information locked away like state secrets. Meanwhile, I'd reluctantly taken a part-time position at Target to appease the family tribunal. 28 hours a week at $13 an hour, just enough to cover their ridiculous rent demands while keeping me too exhausted to job hunt effectively. Or so they thought. Sarah. Get down here. Mom's voice cut through my morning routine like a fire alarm. I was scheduled to work a 4-hour shift later, because apparently retail workers don't deserve holidays, but first, I had to survive family breakfast. I found them all gathered in the kitchen, Mom frantically pulling things out of the refrigerator, Dad scrolling his phone with a cup of coffee, and Jake eating leftover pizza for breakfast like the 19-year-old man-child he was. We have a problem, Mom announced, slamming a package of frozen turkey on the counter. Your Aunt Patricia and Uncle Mike are driving up from Phoenix with the twins. They'll be here in 3 hours. I waited for her to continue, but she just stared at me expectantly. Okay, I said slowly. That's nice. I haven't seen them since. You need to call in sick to work, Dad interrupted, not looking up from his phone. Patricia specifically asked for you to be here. Plus we need you to cook the turkey. I can't call in sick. I just started 2 weeks ago. I grabbed a banana from the counter, my stomach already nodding with anxiety. And since when do I cook the turkey? You've been making Thanksgiving dinner for 20 years. Since I'm too stressed to handle it, Mom snapped. Do you see what your father's unemployment has done to me? I can barely function. The least you can do is help your family instead of prioritizing some minimum wage job. The irony wasn't lost on me, they'd forced me to take the minimum wage job and now wanted me to risk it for their convenience. Sarah, just call in, Jake added helpfully. Tell them you have food poisoning or something. It's not a big deal. It is a big deal. I need this job to pay the rent you're all charging me. Oh, please. Mom's laugh was bitter. You think $650 a month is expensive? Try paying a real mortgage. Try supporting a family when your husband's business fails and your oldest daughter comes crawling back home like a... Like a what? I asked quietly. The kitchen went silent. Even Jake stopped chewing his pizza. Nothing, Mom muttered, turning back to the frozen turkey. Just, make the call. Patricia will be devastated if you're not here. She's been bragging about you to everyone, her niece with a college degree. The college degree that apparently qualifies me to stock shelves and cook turkeys, I said. Don't be smart with me, Sarah Elizabeth. Dad's voice carried that warning tone I remembered from childhood. Your mother is asking you to do one simple thing for this family. After everything we've done for you. I pulled out my phone and opened my camera app, pretending to look for my manager's number while actually starting a voice recording. A trick I'd learned from a true crime podcast. Fine, I said. But I want to understand something first. You're asking me to potentially lose my job so I can cook dinner for relatives who haven't visited in 5 years, because Mom is too stressed about Dad's unemployment, the same unemployment that apparently makes it necessary for me to pay rent to live in my childhood bedroom. Do I have that right? Jesus Christ, Sarah. Jake rolled his eyes. Why do you have to make everything so complicated? Because apparently I'm the only one in this house who understands consequences, I shot back. You want to talk about consequences? Dad stood up, his chair scraping against the linoleum. Here's a consequence. Call in sick, cook the dinner, and act like a grateful daughter for one goddamn day. Or pack your bags and see how grateful the world is for your attitude. I looked around at their faces, Mom's mixture of desperation and rage, Dad's cold ultimatum, Jake's smug satisfaction at watching me squirm. 3 people who were supposed to love me, who instead saw me as a convenient solution to every problem they'd created for themselves. Okay, I said simply, stopping the recording. I'll make the call. But as I walked upstairs, I wasn't calling Target. I was calling Marcus Chen, the recruiter from Austin who'd been trying to set up an interview with a tech startup. It was time to accelerate my timeline. Some bridges, I realized, were meant to be burned. The call with Marcus Chen lasted exactly 12 minutes and changed everything. Sarah, I've been waiting to hear from you. His voice was warm through my phone speaker as I paced my childhood bedroom. I know the timing is unconventional, but my client just had their marketing director quit unexpectedly. They need someone to start December 15th, full remote until you can relocate. Salary starts at $72,000. I nearly dropped my phone. That's, yes. Absolutely yes. Great. Can you do a video interview tomorrow at 2 p.m.? I know it's Black Friday, but the CEO is flying to Singapore on Monday and wants this position filled before he leaves. I glanced at my door, hearing Mom's voice downstairs getting progressively more shrill as she barked orders at Jake about cleaning the bathroom. Tomorrow works perfectly. After hanging up, I sat on my bed staring at the job details Marcus had texted. Senior Marketing Coordinator. Austin, Texas. Benefits package. Real salary. Real life. Then I heard Patricia's voice echoing up from the kitchen. They'd arrived early, of course, and my stomach clenched. I'd managed to call out sick from Target with a migraine excuse, but now I had to face 3 hours of playing the grateful, successful niece while internally screaming. Sarah. Come meet the twins. Mom's voice had magically transformed into its company-friendly tone, all sweetness and fake pride. I trudged downstairs to find Aunt Patricia enveloping me in a cloud of too strong perfume and enthusiasm. Look at you. Still beautiful as ever. Mike, doesn't she look just like Jennifer did at that age? Uncle Mike grunted his agreement while wrestling 2 squirming 8-year-olds who'd apparently forgotten me entirely since our last meeting. Patricia held me at arm's length, beaming. Now tell me everything about this marketing job. Your mother says you're working for some big company in Denver. The lie hit me like a physical blow. I looked at Mom, who was suddenly fascinated by the turkey timer, avoiding my eyes completely. Actually, I started, but Dad jumped in smoothly. She's taking some time to explore her options, he said, clapping a hand on my shoulder that felt more like a warning than affection. Really evaluating what she wants to do with that expensive degree we paid for. Patricia's smile faltered slightly. Oh. Well, that's smart, I suppose. Taking time to figure things out. The disappointment in her voice was subtle but unmistakable. I watched Mom's jaw tighten as she registered it too. Sarah's been helping us through a difficult transition, Mom added quickly. She's very family-oriented. Not everyone would move back home to support their parents through unemployment. That's wonderful, Patricia said, but her tone suggested it was anything but wonderful. The twins, tell Sarah what you want to be when you grow up. As the 8-year-olds launched into excited babbling about becoming astronauts and veterinarians, I caught Jake smirking at me from across the kitchen. He was enjoying this, watching me get slowly roasted in front of relatives, watching Mom scramble to spin my failure into something noble. I need to check on the turkey, I announced, escaping to peer into the oven at the bird that was definitely not cooking fast enough. Mom appeared beside me, her voice low and venomous. Don't you dare embarrass me in front of my sister. I'm not doing anything. Your attitude is doing plenty. Patricia drove 6 hours to see us, and you're acting like a martyr. I turned to face her. What did you want me to say? That I'm actually stocking shelves at Target because you forced me to take the first job I could find? I want you to act grateful for the family that's supporting you instead of supporting me. My voice came out louder than intended, and I saw Patricia glance over curiously. Mom, you're charging me market rate rent to live in my childhood bedroom. Mom's face went white, then red. Lower your voice. But it was too late. Patricia had definitely heard, and her expression was shifting from confusion to something that looked almost like pity. For me or for Mom, I couldn't tell. The turkey timer chose that exact moment to start beeping, shrill and insistent, like an alarm warning everyone that something was about to get burned beyond recognition. The turkey was overcooked and the sweet potato casserole had somehow curdled, but nobody mentioned it. We sat around the dining table making strained conversation while Patricia's twins pushed food around their plates and asked increasingly pointed questions that made the adults squirm. Why does Sarah live here if she's grown up? 8-year-old Emma asked, stabbing a piece of dry turkey with her fork. Because families stick together, Mom replied tightly, refilling her wine glass for the third time. But my teacher Miss Rodriguez says adults move out when they get jobs. Does Sarah have a job? The silence stretched until Uncle Mike cleared his throat. Emma, eat your vegetables. I excused myself to get more rolls from the kitchen, but really I needed 30 seconds away from the suffocating awkwardness. That's when I heard Patricia's voice drift in from the dining room, pitched low but not quite low enough. Don't understand why you're making her pay rent, Jen. She's your daughter, not a tenant. It's complicated, Mom hissed back. She needs to learn responsibility. We can't enable. She has a college degree. Doesn't that show responsibility? The degree didn't stop her from getting fired, did it? My hands froze on the bread basket. Through the doorway, I could see Dad shifting uncomfortably while Jake suddenly became very interested in his phone. Maybe she wasn't fired, Patricia said quietly. Maybe she's struggling like everyone else in this economy. When Mike lost his job in 2019, we didn't charge him rent in his own house. Mike is your husband. That's different. Is it? Sarah is your child. I pressed myself against the kitchen counter, my heart hammering. Someone was finally saying what I'd been thinking for months, and it wasn't me. You don't understand our situation, Mom's voice was getting that dangerous edge. Sarah has always been difficult. Self-centered. She thinks she's better than us. Based on what? She moved back home when she needed help. She got a job when you asked her to. She cooked this entire dinner. What exactly makes her difficult? The silence that followed was deafening. I could picture Mom's face, the way her mouth would be pressed into a thin line while she searched for ammunition. She blames us, Dad finally said. For her problems. Acts like we're the reason she can't get her life together. What problems, exactly? Patricia's voice was sharper now. From where I'm sitting, it looks like she's the only one holding things together. I heard a chair scrape against the floor and quickly grabbed the bread basket, rushing back to the table before anyone could realize I'd been listening. But the damage was done. Patricia was looking at my parents like she was seeing them clearly for the first time, and she obviously didn't like what she saw. More wine, anyone? I offered brightly, playing the perfect hostess while my mind raced. I'll take some, Patricia said, holding out her glass. When I leaned over to pour, she caught my wrist gently. You know, Sarah, if you ever want to visit Phoenix, our guest room is always open. No rent required. The offer hung in the air like a bomb. Mom's fork clattered against her plate. That's very kind, I managed, but I'm actually expecting to hear about a new position soon. In Austin. It wasn't exactly a lie, I had the interview tomorrow. But Dad's head snapped up so fast I thought he might get whiplash. Austin. His voice was carefully controlled. You didn't mention any prospects in Austin. I didn't want to get anyone's hopes up. I met his stare evenly. But it looks promising. Remote work initially, then relocation by January. Jake's mouth actually fell open. Mom had gone completely still, her wine glass halfway to her lips. That's wonderful news, Patricia said warmly. Austin is a fantastic city for marketing professionals. And that's when I realized I wasn't the only one who'd been keeping secrets. The revelation came out sideways, the way family secrets always do, through Patricia's wine-loosened tongue and Mom's panicked attempt to control the narrative. You know, Sarah, Patricia continued, swirling her third glass of Chardonnay, your mother mentioned last month that you were having such a hard time finding work. It's amazing how quickly things can turn around. I felt the temperature in the room drop 10 degrees. Last month. When she called asking if Mike knew anyone in marketing. She was so worried about you, said you'd been. Patricia stopped mid-sentence, finally noticing Mom's death glare across the table. Patricia, Mom said quietly, maybe we should. Wait. I set down my fork with deliberate precision. You called Patricia about my job search. When exactly was this? The silence stretched until Uncle Mike started awkwardly cutting his turkey into microscopic pieces. Jake had his phone out, probably texting his friends about the family drama unfolding in real time. It was just. Mom's voice faltered. I was trying to help. September 30th, Patricia said, because apparently she had a better memory than my mother was counting on. Right around when you moved back home, I think. Jennifer was beside herself, said you were completely unmotivated and just laying around feeling sorry for yourself. My vision actually blurred for a second. September 30th. 3 days after I'd moved back home. Before the family meetings, before the demands that I pay rent, before they declared me a burden who needed to learn responsibility. You told her I was unmotivated. My voice came out steady, which surprised me. I was venting, Mom said quickly. I didn't mean. You told your sister that I was laying around feeling sorry for myself. 3 days after I moved home. While I was sending out 15 applications a day and crying in my car after every rejection. Patricia's face had gone pale. Oh honey, I didn't realize, Jennifer, you said she wasn't even trying to find work. That's not what I said. But Mom's protest sounded weak even to her. Actually, Mom, what else did you tell people? I turned to face her fully. Because I'm starting to wonder who else thinks I'm some kind of freeloading failure. Dad cleared his throat uncomfortably. Sarah, your mother was just. Just what? Just destroying my reputation with our entire extended family. Just making sure everyone knows what a disappointment I am. Nobody said you were a disappointment, Jake mumbled, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. Really? Because yesterday you told Mrs. Henderson from next door that I got fired for attitude problems when she asked why I was home during the day. Jake's face went red. I didn't think. No, you didn't think. None of you think. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the hardwood. You just talk. To neighbors, to relatives, to anyone who'll listen about how Sarah screwed up her life and had to come crawling back home. That's enough, Dad's voice carried that familiar warning. Is it? Because I'm just getting started. I pulled out my phone, opening the recording app. Patricia, you seem like the only honest person at this table, so let me ask you something. In your opinion, does someone who's been job hunting for 3 months, took a retail job to pay bills, and cooks Thanksgiving dinner for the family sound unmotivated? Patricia glanced nervously between me and Mom. Well, no, that sounds like. It sounds like someone doing their best in a difficult situation, I finished. Which is apparently not the story everyone else has been hearing. Mom's hands were shaking as she reached for her wine glass. You're being dramatic. Am I? Because I've got documentation that says otherwise. I held up my phone, letting them see the recording app was still running. 3 months of documentation, actually. The color drained from Dad's face. What kind of documentation? The kind that shows what really goes on in this house. The kind that shows who's actually being unreasonable here. I stopped the recording and slipped my phone back into my pocket. The kind that might interest people who've been hearing lies about my character. Patricia was staring at Mom with something approaching horror. Jennifer, what is she talking about? And that's when I realized I had more power in this situation than I'd ever understood. They'd been banking on my shame, my desire to keep family business private, my willingness to absorb their dysfunction silently. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd involved other people in their campaign to tear me down. Actually, Patricia, I said sweetly, since you drove all this way, maybe you'd like to hear the whole story. The words hung in the air like a challenge thrown down at a duel. Patricia set down her wine glass with the careful precision of someone who suddenly understood she'd walked into a minefield. Jennifer. Patricia's voice was quiet, but I could hear the steel underneath. What story? Mom's laugh came out brittle and fake. Sarah's being dramatic, you know how she gets when. When I what? I interrupted. When I tell the truth. Because that's all I'm offering to do. Uncle Mike had stopped pretending to eat entirely, his fork suspended halfway to his mouth like he was watching a car accident in slow motion. The twins were mercifully distracted by their tablets, oblivious to the adult drama unfolding around them. Sarah, sit down, Dad commanded, but his voice lacked its usual authority. We don't air family business in front of. In front of family. I remained standing, feeling steadier on my feet than I had in months. But isn't that exactly what you've been doing? Airing my business to Patricia, to the neighbors, to anyone who'll listen. Patricia's eyes narrowed as she looked between my parents. What is she talking about, Jennifer? It's complicated, Mom started, but I cut her off. It's really not complicated at all. It's actually pretty simple. I pulled out my phone again, scrolling to my screenshots folder. See, I've been keeping track of things. Would you like to hear about the text messages? Jake finally looked up from his phone, alarm flickering across his face. Sarah, don't. Don't what? Don't tell Patricia about how you blamed me when you got arrested for public intoxication last month. Or should I skip to the part where Mom and Dad made me pay your court fees because apparently your choices are my responsibility? Patricia's mouth fell open. Jake got arrested? It wasn't a big deal, Jake mumbled, his earlier smugness evaporating. Just a misunderstanding. A $800 misunderstanding, I clarified, that came out of my Target paychecks because I'm apparently the family ATM now. You offered to help, Mom protested weakly. I offered after you said I'd be kicked out if I didn't. There's a difference. I turned back to Patricia, who was looking increasingly horrified. Did they mention that part when they told you how selfish and unmotivated I am? Dad's chair scraped as he stood up. That's enough, Sarah. You're embarrassing your mother. Am I? Because I think I'm just telling the truth. I scrolled through more screenshots. Patricia, did you know they've been charging me $650 a month to live in my childhood bedroom? Or that they threatened to kick me out on Thanksgiving morning if I didn't call in sick to work to cook this dinner? $650. Patricia's voice was sharp now. Jennifer, that's more than most people pay for actual apartments around here. It includes utilities, Mom said defensively, but even she seemed to realize how weak that sounded. My friend Rachel pays $600 for a two-bedroom apartment in Phoenix, Patricia shot back. With a pool and a gym. The comparison hung in the air, damning and precise. I watched Mom's face cycle through embarrassment, anger, and something that might have been shame if she were capable of it. Maybe we should talk about this later, Uncle Mike suggested diplomatically, but Patricia was just getting started. No, I think we should talk about this now. She turned to face my parents fully. Because I've spent 6 months worried sick about Sarah, thinking she was having some kind of breakdown. I even called my friend Maria who works in HR to ask about entry-level positions at her company. My heart stopped. You did what? I wanted to help. Your mother made it sound like you were completely lost, maybe even depressed. I was going to call you next week about a marketing coordinator position that just opened up. Patricia's voice was getting stronger, more accusatory. But now I'm wondering if the problem isn't Sarah at all. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the twins had stopped playing their games, sensing the tension in the room. The problem, Dad said carefully, is that Sarah has unrealistic expectations about. The problem, I interrupted, is that you've turned me into the scapegoat for every issue in this family, and you're angry that I'm finally calling you out on it. That's when Mom's composure finally cracked completely. How dare you, she hissed, her wine-flushed face contorting with rage. After everything we've sacrificed for you. What exactly have you sacrificed? Because I'm struggling to see it. And that's when she said the words that changed everything between us forever. We gave up our dreams for you. Mom's voice cracked as she slammed her wine glass down so hard I thought it might shatter. Do you think I wanted to stay in this dead-end town? Do you think your father wanted to watch his business fail while supporting an ungrateful daughter who thinks she's too good for us? The words hit like a slap, but not for the reason she intended. I stared at her, pieces clicking into place with horrible clarity. Wait, I said slowly. Your dreams. What dreams are you talking about? Patricia was watching this exchange like a tennis match, her expression growing more concerned by the second. I had a chance to move to California in 1998, Mom continued, her voice rising. A real chance at a career in interior design. But no, I had to stay here because you were starting high school and your father said we couldn't disrupt your education. I was 14, I said, incredulous. That was 10 years before I even went to college. And then college, Dad jumped in, his own composure slipping. For years of out-of-state tuition that wiped out our savings. For years of us eating ramen noodles so you could get your precious degree. You told me to go to Colorado State. You said it was an investment in my future. We said a lot of things, Mom snapped. We thought you'd graduate and get some high-paying job and help us rebuild. Maybe move us somewhere nicer, help your father start over. The room spun slightly as the full picture came into focus. You thought I was going to, what? Support you. Move you to California. Other children help their parents, Dad said coldly. Other children show gratitude. Patricia's voice cut through the tension like a knife. Are you saying you put your daughter through college expecting her to financially support you afterward? It's not unreasonable, Mom said defensively. We invested in her education. We had a right to expect some return on that investment. Return on investment? I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. You're talking about me like I'm a stock portfolio. You're talking like someone who's never had to sacrifice anything for family, Jake added, apparently emboldened by our parents' meltdown. Do you know what it's been like living here while you were off partying in college? Partying? I worked 20 hours a week and maintained a 3.8 GPA. While we struggled here, Dad said. While I watched my business collapse and your mother worked double shifts at the hospital just to keep this house. Nobody told me any of this. The words exploded out of me. Nobody said you were struggling. You told me everything was fine. You told me to focus on my studies. We didn't want to worry you, Mom said, but her voice had lost its conviction. Or maybe you didn't want me to feel guilty enough to drop out and come home early, I shot back. Maybe you wanted me to graduate so I could be your retirement plan. Patricia stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. Mike, get the twins ready. We're leaving. Patricia, wait, Mom started, but my aunt was already shaking her head. No, Jennifer. This is. She gestured helplessly at the table, at the wreckage of our family dinner. I don't even know what this is, but I won't subject my children to it. You're overreacting, Dad tried, but Patricia was already gathering the twins' tablets. Am I? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been financially and emotionally manipulating your daughter for months, possibly years. She looked directly at me. Sarah, my offer stands. Phoenix. No rent. No conditions. The offer hung in the air like a life preserver thrown to a drowning person. She's not going anywhere, Mom said quickly, panic creeping into her voice. She can't afford to leave. Patricia's smile was razor-sharp. Actually, Jennifer, I think that's exactly the point. As Patricia herded her confused twins toward the door, their tablets clutched in small hands, I felt something shift inside me like tectonic plates finding their final position. The house suddenly felt smaller, the air thinner, like the walls were closing in on a truth that had been festering for years. Patricia, please, Mom called out, following them toward the front hall. Don't leave like this. We can work this out as a family. Family. Patricia stopped at the door, her hand on the knob. Jennifer, do you know what I told my friends about you? I bragged about how supportive you were being with Sarah during her job transition. I said you were the kind of mother who welcomed her adult children home without judgment. Her voice cracked slightly. I was proud of you. Mom's face crumpled. Patricia, I defended you when Mike said charging her rent seemed harsh. I said you were teaching her responsibility, helping her get back on her feet. Patricia shook her head. I was such an idiot. Uncle Mike appeared with their coats, avoiding eye contact with everyone. Ready, hon. More than ready. Patricia turned back to me one last time. Sarah, I'm going to text you my number. I meant what I said about Phoenix. The door closed behind them with a soft click that somehow sounded louder than if they'd slammed it. Through the living room window, I watched their rental car pull out of our driveway, taking with them the last witness to what had just unfolded. Mom stood in the hallway for a long moment, staring at the closed door. When she finally turned around, her mascara had smudged under her eyes, making her look older than her 53 years. "Look what you've done," she said quietly. "You've ruined everything." "I ruined everything." The words came out as a laugh, sharp and bitter. "Mom, I told the truth. That's literally all I did. You humiliated us in front of my sister. No, you humiliated yourselves. I just stopped covering for you." Dad had retreated to the kitchen and was aggressively loading the dishwasher, slamming plates around like they'd personally offended him. Jake had disappeared entirely, probably hiding in his room until the fallout settled. "Your aunt is going to tell everyone," Mom continued, sinking onto the couch. "The whole family is going to think we're terrible parents." "Are you terrible parents?" The question hung in the air, simple and devastating. "Of course not. We love you. Everything we've done has been about what I can do for you," I finished. "Not about what's actually good for me." "That's not true. Isn't it? When's the last time you asked me how I was doing? Not how the job hunt was going, not whether I'd found a way to solve your financial problems, but how I was actually feeling." Mom opened her mouth, then closed it again. The silence stretched until I could hear the dishwasher running in the kitchen, the steady hum of normalcy in a house where nothing was normal anymore. "The interview is tomorrow at 2 p.m., I said finally. "The job in Austin. If they offer it to me, I'm taking it." "You can't just leave," she said, but there was no fight left in her voice. "Watch me." I climbed the stairs to my room, each step feeling like I was ascending out of quicksand. Behind my closed door, I opened my laptop and began typing an email to Marcus Chen, confirming tomorrow's video interview and asking about expedited start dates. Outside my window, I could see Mrs. Henderson in her kitchen, probably wondering why Patricia's family had left so early. By tomorrow, she'd know exactly why, because in a family of secret keepers and blame shifters, the truth always finds a way to surface. And sometimes, it brings the whole house down with it. The video interview with Austin went better than I could have dreamed. Marcus had connected me with Elena Rodriguez, the CEO of Innovate Tech Solutions, who turned out to be a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s with the kind of direct communication style I'd been craving for months. "Your portfolio is impressive," she said, scrolling through the marketing campaigns I presented on screen. "But I have to ask, why are you looking to leave Denver so quickly? Most people don't want to relocate during the holidays." I'd rehearsed this answer, but sitting in my childhood bedroom with my family's voices drifting up from downstairs, the truth felt easier than any lie. "I'm currently living with family temporarily, and it's become clear that I need a fresh start somewhere that aligns better with my career goals." Elena nodded knowingly. "Family situations can be complicated. The position starts at $72,000 with full benefits. We'd need you to begin remote work December 10th, with relocation to Austin by January 15th. Is that timeline feasible?" "Absolutely." The word came out so fast I almost surprised myself. "Excellent. I'll have Marcus send over the offer letter today. Welcome to the team, Sarah." 28 minutes. That's how long it took to completely change the trajectory of my life. I was still staring at my laptop screen in disbelief when Jake appeared in my doorway without knocking, which was typical. "Mom wants to talk to you," he said, but he was studying my expression curiously. "Why do you look weird?" "Define weird." "Like, happy." "It's freaking me out." I closed my laptop carefully, as if sudden movements might make the job offer disappear. "Tell Mom I'll be down in a minute." "What were you doing up here? You've been locked in here for like 2 hours." The old me would have deflected, maybe even lied to avoid the inevitable family interrogation. The new me, the one with a $72,000 salary and a plane ticket out of here, felt different. "I got the job in Austin," I said simply. Jake's face went through several expressions at once. "What job?" "The one you mentioned at dinner. The marketing coordinator position. They want me to start December 10th. That's like 2 weeks from now. 12 days, actually." I pulled out my phone to check Marcus's email, which had just arrived with the official offer letter attached. "Remote work initially, then I relocate in January." Jake slumped against my doorframe. "Shit, Sarah. You're actually leaving." There was something in his voice I hadn't heard before, not the usual smugness or irritation, but something that almost sounded like panic. "Did you think I was going to live here forever? Pay rent in my own bedroom while you all blame me for problems I didn't create? I don't know. Maybe." He was quiet for a moment. "What about everything? The money stuff with Mom and Dad? What about it? They're counting on your rent payments. And Dad thought maybe when you got a better job, you could help with the mortgage or whatever." I stared at him. "Jake, they've been charging me $650 a month while telling everyone I'm a freeloader. Why would I want to help with their mortgage?" "Because we're family." "Family." I repeated the word like I was testing how it tasted. "Is that what you call what happened at Thanksgiving dinner?" Jake shifted uncomfortably. "That was intense. But Mom's been crying since Patricia left. She feels bad about how things went. She feels bad that she got caught, not about what she actually did." "Come on, Sarah. You know she loves you." "Does she?" "Because lately it feels like she loves the idea of what I could do for her more than she loves me." My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus, offer letter sent. "HR will call Monday about start paperwork. Congratulations." I showed Jake the message, watching his face fall as the reality sank in. "You could commute," he said desperately. "Austin's only like 4 hours away." 4 hours away from what? This? I gestured around my childhood bedroom with its outdated posters and furniture I'd outgrown years ago. "Jake, when's the last time any of you treated me like someone you actually wanted around instead of someone you were stuck with?" He couldn't answer, which was answer enough. "Tell Mom I'll be down in a few minutes," I said, opening my laptop again. "I need to respond to some emails first." After he left, I sat staring at the offer letter, the salary figure, the January 15th relocation date. 12 days to wrap up my old life. 12 days to figure out how to tell my family that their backup plan was about to walk out the door. From downstairs, I could hear Mom's voice, higher pitched than usual, talking rapidly on the phone. Probably calling Patricia to apologize, or maybe calling other relatives to control the narrative before news of yesterday's disaster spread. But it was too late for damage control now. The truth was already out there, growing legs, preparing to run. And so was I. The confrontation I'd been dreading came at 6:23 p.m., exactly 47 minutes after I'd signed and returned the offer letter to Innovate Tech Solutions. I found Mom and Dad waiting in the living room like a two-person tribunal, their faces wearing matching expressions of grim determination. Mom had been crying, her eyes were puffy and red-rimmed, but she'd pulled herself together enough to attempt what looked like a coordinated intervention. "Sit down, Sarah," Dad said, patting the armchair across from the couch where they sat shoulder to shoulder in united front formation. "We need to discuss this Austin situation." "There's nothing to discuss. I got the job, I accepted it, I start December 10th. I remained standing, my arms crossed. End of discussion." "Like hell it is," Mom snapped, her composure cracking immediately. "You can't just abandon your family when we need you most." "Need me for what, exactly? To be your personal ATM? To take the blame every time Jake screws up? To cook your dinners and absorb your bad moods? To be part of this family," Dad said, his voice taking on that manipulative tone I'd learned to recognize. "Sarah, we know yesterday got heated, but families fight. That doesn't mean you run away to another state. This isn't running away. This is called getting a career. You can have a career here," Mom said desperately. "Patricia mentioned her friend Maria has connections. You don't need to move to Texas." The irony was almost funny. "Yesterday you told Patricia I was unmotivated and lazy. Today you want to use her connections to keep me here." "I was upset," Mom said, fresh tears starting. "I said things I didn't mean. But Sarah, if you leave now, you'll destroy this family." "I'll destroy this family." The words came out louder than I'd intended. "Mom, this family was already destroyed. I'm just refusing to pretend otherwise." Dad leaned forward, switching tactics. "What about the financial reality here? Your rent payments are helping keep this house. If you leave, we might lose it." There it was, the guilt bomb I'd been expecting. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to my calculator app, doing quick math in front of them. "Let me get this straight. You're charging me $650 a month, which is $7,800 a year. If losing that money means you lose the house, then you're about $7,800 away from foreclosure." I looked up from my phone. "Dad, exactly how bad are your finances?" His face went pale. "That's not, it's more complicated than that." "Is it? Because if you're that close to losing the house, maybe the problem isn't me leaving. Maybe the problem is that you've been living beyond your means and using me as a stopgap measure." "Don't lecture us about finances," Mom said sharply. "You've never owned property, never supported a family. And I never will if I stay here subsidizing yours," I shot back. "Mom, I'm 24 years old. This is exactly when I should be building my own life, not propping up yours." "Other children help their parents," Dad said, recycling his line from yesterday. "Look at the Martinez family down the street, their son bought them a new car last year. Their son is 38 and makes six figures as an engineer. He also doesn't live in his childhood bedroom and get blamed for his siblings' mistakes." Mom's tears were flowing freely now. "So that's it? You're just going to abandon us? Leave us here to struggle while you go live your perfect life in Austin?" "My perfect life?" I stared at her in disbelief. "Mom, 3 months ago I was unemployed, sleeping on my friend's couch, eating ramen noodles for dinner. I've worked retail jobs, applied to hundreds of positions, and finally, got a chance at something better. How is that abandonment?" "Because we need you," she whispered, and for a moment she sounded like a child instead of my mother. The admission hung in the air between us, raw and desperate. And that's when I realized the truth I'd been circling around for months. They didn't need me, they needed what I represented. A solution. A scapegoat. A source of income and stability they could control. "You need me," I repeated slowly. "But do you want me?" "Because there's a difference." The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. The answer came in the form of a family meeting called for 7 a.m. the next morning, a time specifically chosen, I realized, because I'd mentioned my target shift started at 8. "We've made a decision," Dad announced as I stumbled downstairs with my coffee, still groggy and already dreading whatever fresh hell they'd cooked up overnight. "About Austin." Mom sat beside him with a manila folder in her lap, her eyes puffy but determined. Jake was there too, which immediately set off alarm bells. They only brought him in when they needed extra ammunition. "You can go," Mom said, her voice artificially bright. "But there are conditions." I blinked, certain I'd misheard. "Conditions?" "You owe us money," Dad said, sliding a handwritten ledger across the kitchen table. We did the math. 4 years of college support, plus 3 months of housing and food since you moved back. We calculated at roughly $47,000. I stared at the numbers scrawled in Mom's familiar handwriting. They'd itemized everything: tuition payments, textbooks, care packages, gas money for trips home, even my high school graduation party from 2018. "You kept receipts for my graduation party?" "We kept records," Dad corrected. "We always planned to discuss repayment once you were established in your career." "Repayment." The word felt foreign in my mouth. "You want me to pay you back for being your daughter?" "For the investments we made in your future," Mom said, opening her folder to reveal more papers. "Other families do this. It's called a family loan program." Jake shifted uncomfortably but didn't say anything. I wondered if they'd threatened him too, or if he was just enjoying watching me squirm. "This is insane," I said, scanning their ridiculous calculations. "They'd charged me interest on my textbook money. Actual interest. You can't be serious about this." "We're completely serious," Dad replied. "But we're reasonable people. You don't have to pay it all at once. Mom slid another paper across the table, a payment plan that would require me to send them $1,200 a month for the next 3.5 years. $1,200 a month. My voice cracked. That's more than most people's rent. It's less than we spent supporting you, Mom said coolly. We calculated a very fair interest rate. I did quick math in my head. After taxes, my new salary would be roughly $4,200 a month. Rent in Austin would probably run $1,400 to $1,600 for a decent place. Add utilities, car payment, student loans, food, and basic living expenses, and their family loan repayment would consume every penny I had left. You're trying to make sure I can't afford to leave, I said, the realization hitting me like cold water. We're trying to make sure you honor your obligations, Dad corrected. If you take the Austin job, fine. But you pay us what you owe us first. And if I don't agree to this payment plan? Mom's smile turned brittle. Then we'll have to explore other options for recovering our investment. Legal options. The threat landed exactly as intended. They were holding my college education hostage, turning 4 years of family support into a financial prison designed to keep me trapped exactly where they wanted me. Jake finally spoke up from his corner of the kitchen. Maybe you could just stay local. Find something here that pays enough to cover both rent and the family stuff. Local jobs that pay $72,000 don't exist here, I said flatly. You know that. They know that. That's the whole point. Mom folded her hands on top of the payment plan, her wedding ring catching the morning light. Sarah, we're not unreasonable people. We just want what's fair. But as I stared at their calculated faces and their itemized betrayal, I realized they'd just made the biggest tactical error of their lives. They'd put their manipulation in writing. I stared at the payment plan for a full 30 seconds, letting the silence stretch until Mom started fidgeting with her coffee cup. Then I pulled out my phone and took a photo of every single document they'd spread across the table. What are you doing? Dad asked sharply. Documentation, I said, adjusting the angle to capture Mom's handwritten calculations clearly. This is fascinating evidence of, well, I'm not sure what to call it legally, but I bet a lawyer would have some interesting words for it. You don't need a lawyer, Mom said quickly. This is a family matter. Is it? Because threatening legal action against your own daughter for accepting parental support sounds like it might be something more than a family matter. I took another photo, this one of their itemized list that included my $47 high school prom dress from 2017. Jake was staring at the papers like he was seeing them for the first time. You guys really kept track of everything. Families who are serious about their children's success keep records, Dad said, but his voice lacked conviction. I scrolled through my phone to my voice recorder app and hit start, setting it on the table between us. So just to clarify for the record, you're demanding $1,200 a month for the next 3.5 years as repayment for college expenses and basic parental support. And if I refuse, you'll take legal action against me? Sarah, turn that off, Mom said, reaching for my phone. I pulled it back. Why? If this is all legitimate and reasonable, you shouldn't mind having it recorded. Because it's private family business, Dad snapped. Private family business that you're threatening to make public through the legal system, I pointed out. Seems like that ship has sailed. That's when Jake asked the question that changed everything. Wait, did you guys keep records for me too? The silence that followed was deafening. Mom and Dad exchanged a look that lasted about 3 seconds too long to be innocent. Jake's situation is different, Mom said carefully. Different how? I leaned forward, suddenly very interested in this new development. He's still finding his path, Dad said. College isn't for everyone. But rehab is expensive, Jake said quietly, his face pale. And those court fees Sarah had to pay, and the money you gave me for the car repairs after I crashed into Mr. Peterson's fence. Did you keep track of all that? Another loaded silence. I watched my parents' carefully constructed moral high ground crumble in real time. That's different, Mom repeated, but she wouldn't look at Jake. How is it different? I asked, my voice deadly calm. How much has Jake cost this family in the past year alone? Sarah, don't, Jake warned, but I was just getting started. I pulled out my own notebook, the one where I'd been tracking family financial dynamics along with everything else. Let's see. September's DUI lawyer fees, $2,800. October's rehab program that he quit after 5 days, $1,200 deposit lost. November's car repairs, $890. The emergency room visit after his overdose scare in August. Stop, Mom said sharply. That's not the same thing. You're right, it's not the same. Jake's expenses were all consequences of his own bad choices. My college education was something you encouraged and supported. But somehow I'm the one who owes money. Jake's face had gone from pale to green. You guys really kept a list of my stuff. We're not charging Jake interest, Dad said defensively. You're not charging Jake anything, I corrected. Even though his mistakes have cost you more in 1 year than my college textbooks did in 4. The truth hung in the air like smoke from a fire nobody wanted to acknowledge. I watched Mom's hands shake as she reached for her coffee, watched Dad's jaw clench as he realized their double standard had been exposed. This conversation is over, Dad announced, starting to gather up their papers. Actually, I said, stopping my recording, I think it's just getting started. I spent the rest of that morning doing research that would have made a private investigator proud. Sitting in my car outside Target before my shift, I called Patricia first. She answered on the second ring, her voice warm but cautious. Sarah. How are you holding up after yesterday? Actually, that's what I'm calling about. Patricia, I have a legal question, and I figured you might know since Uncle Mike works in real estate. Of course, honey. What's going on? I explained the morning's ambush, the itemized bill, the payment plan, the legal threats. I could hear Patricia's sharp intake of breath when I mentioned the $47,000 figure. They want you to pay them back for college. Sarah, that's... She paused, and I heard papers rustling. Mike. Come here, I need you to listen to this. After I repeated everything for Uncle Mike, the silence on their end stretched long enough that I wondered if the call had dropped. Sarah, Mike's voice was tight with controlled anger. What your parents are describing isn't a family loan program. It's financial abuse. And it might actually be extortion, depending on how they worded those threats. Extortion. Threatening legal action to coerce payment for something you never agreed to pay back. Yeah, that could qualify. I heard him talking quietly to Patricia. Do you have documentation of this conversation? Photos of all their paperwork, plus an audio recording. Good girl. Keep those safe. His voice got clearer as he spoke directly into the phone again. Sarah, I want you to email me everything you have. Photos, recordings, text messages, all of it. I'm calling my lawyer friend Tom Rodriguez this afternoon. Uncle Mike, I can't afford a lawyer. You're not hiring him, honey. I am. Consider it an early Christmas present. Patricia's voice came back on the line. Sarah, are you safe there? Do you need to leave sooner than planned? I looked at Target's red and white sign, thinking about my last few shifts, about the coworkers who become friends, about the strange comfort of a job that was simple and honest. I think I'm okay for now. But thank you. Both of you. We mean it about Phoenix, Patricia said firmly. If you need somewhere to stay while you figure out Austin, we have space. After hanging up, I sat in my car feeling something I hadn't experienced in months. I wasn't alone anymore. My shift at Target was a blur of restocking shelves and fielding questions about Black Friday sales, but my mind kept churning through possibilities. During my lunch break, I called Marcus Chin. Sarah. Perfect timing. I was just about to email you. Elena wants to know if you can start remote work earlier than December 10th. They're swamped with year-end campaigns. How much earlier? December 1st. I know it's short notice, but they're willing to overnight you a laptop and equipment setup. December 1st. That was tomorrow. Marcus, if I said yes, how quickly could I get the paperwork finalized? Today, if you're available for a call at 3 p.m. HR can expedite everything. He paused. Sarah, is everything okay? You sound different. I watched my Target coworkers through the break room window, cheerfully helping customers who treated them like human beings. Everything's about to be okay. Send me the paperwork. At 2:47 p.m., I walked into my manager's office and submitted my 2 weeks' notice, explaining that I'd received a career opportunity that required immediate transition. Janet, my manager, was disappointed but understanding. You've been one of our best seasonal hires, she said, shaking my hand. If marketing doesn't work out, we'd be happy to have you back. The kindness in her voice, from someone who'd known me for 3 weeks, hit harder than it should have. At 3:15 p.m., I signed my official employment contract with Innovate Tech Solutions, effective December 1st, while sitting in my car in Target's parking lot. At 4:23 p.m., I drove home to tell my family that their timeline for financial manipulation had just been cut by 9 days. The house felt different when I walked in, like the air pressure had changed. I found them clustered around the kitchen table again, their earlier paperwork still spread out like battle plans. We've been talking, Mom announced before I could even set down my purse. We're willing to negotiate the payment terms. That's generous, I said carefully. But it might not matter anymore. Dad looked up sharply. What do you mean? I pulled out my phone and showed them the contract confirmation email. I start Monday. December 1st, remote work begins immediately. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear the refrigerator humming. Monday. Mom's voice cracked. But that's impossible. You work at Target. You have obligations here. I quit Target an hour ago. And my obligations here are about to change dramatically. That's when Jake asked the question that broke everything wide open. Sarah, what did you mean earlier about my expenses? Do you really have a list? I looked at Jake's pale face, then at my parents' panicked expressions, and realized this was the moment everything had been building toward. 3 months of being their scapegoat, their ATM, their verbal punching bag, it all came down to this question. Do I have a list? I repeated, pulling out my phone. Jake, I have spreadsheets. I opened my meticulously organized documentation and turned the screen toward them. Let's start with this year. August 12th, emergency room visit after you fell downstairs at Derek's party, $1,247 after insurance. August 30th, rehab deposit at Sunrise Recovery Center, $1,200, forfeited when you quit after 5 days. September 15th, DUI lawyer retainer, $2,800. September 28th, court fees and fines I paid because you were between jobs, $890. Jake's face went from pale to gray. You wrote all that down. October 3rd, car repair after you drove into Mr. Peterson's fence, $890. October 17th, money Mom gave you for groceries that you spent at the casino, $200. November 8th, replacement iPhone after you lost yours at another party, $800. I scrolled down. Should I continue? Because there's more. Stop, Dad commanded, but his voice lacked its usual authority. November 23rd, Jake's share of Thanksgiving groceries that I ended up buying because he disappeared, $67. Oh, and my personal favorite from last week, the $300 Mom lent you for gas money that you spent on those new sneakers you're wearing right now. Mom's coffee cup clattered against the table. How did you? Because I pay attention. Because I've been documenting every single financial double standard in this house. I looked directly at Jake. Your mistakes cost this family $8,394 in 4 months. My college education, which you're demanding I repay with interest, cost $42,000 over 4 years. The math hung in the air like an indictment. Jake was costing them more per month than I had cost per year. That's different, Mom whispered, but even she didn't sound convinced anymore. You're right, it is different. Jake's expenses were all preventable. Mine were investments in education and career development that you encouraged. I stood up, feeling steady for the first time in months. But here's the best part, I'm not asking Jake to pay any of it back. Dad's hands clenched into fists. Sarah, sit down. We're not finished discussing. Actually, we are. I pulled out a printed email and placed it on top of their payment plan. That's my resignation from Target, effective immediately. This is my new employment contract with Innovate Tech Solutions, starting Monday at $72,000 annually. And this, I added, placing down another paper, is my 30-day notice to vacate the premises. 30 days. Mom's voice was barely audible. I'm moving to Austin January 2nd. I'll pay your ridiculous $650 rent through December, and then I'm done subsidizing this dysfunction. I gathered their papers into a neat stack. As for your fictional $47,000 debt, my uncle's lawyer friend is very interested in reviewing these documents. Apparently, there are laws about financial extortion. You called Patricia. Dad's face flushed red. You involved outsiders in our family business. You mean the same way you involved Patricia when you lied about me being unmotivated? The same way you involved Mrs. Henderson when you let her think I was a failure? I smiled coldly. Funny how privacy only matters when it protects you. Jake finally found his voice. Sarah, what about us? What about the family? I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw not the smug little brother who'd enjoyed watching me get blamed for his mistakes, but a scared 19-year-old who was just beginning to realize that his safety net was walking away. Jake, I love you. I love all of you. But love doesn't mean letting you destroy my life to avoid dealing with your own problems. I picked up my phone and headed toward the stairs. I'll be in my room packing. My lawyer will be in touch about those extortion documents. Sarah, wait, Mom called out, tears streaming down her face. We can work this out. We're family. I paused at the bottom of the stairs. Mom, yesterday you told Patricia that I was selfish and unmotivated. Today you tried to extort $47,000 from me. Tomorrow, you'll probably blame me for abandoning you. I met her eyes directly. But the truth is, I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm finally refusing to be your family's designated punching bag. As I climbed the stairs, I heard Jake ask quietly, Mom, am I really going to have to start paying for my own mistakes now? The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. Finally, after 24 years, they were going to have to figure out their own problems. And I was going to let them.